We're talking SEC football with Southeastern 14. I'm Chase Robinson. Thanks for watching this today. We're going to dive into the Tennessee Vols as following their spring game from this past Saturday. We're going to break it down with Ryan Sylvia of volreport.com. But before we do that, I want to remind you about Bet Online. Our channel is brought to you by Bet Online, your number one source for all your summer sports this season. MLB, golf, NBA, NHL, all the latest stats, news, and scores available for your favorite teams. So get the latest odds and lines, including the latest team matchups, player props, and odds on just about every sport out there. Head over to their website or use your mobile device to get in on the action. Bet Online, where the game starts. So for the Tennessee Volunteers, heading into year 4 with Josh Heupel leading the charge there in Knoxville. Some new faces all over the field. We'll dive into that. Again, Ryan Sylvia with volreport.com covers the Tennessee Vols. Ryan, first of all, thanks for coming on and talking some Vols football with us.
Yeah, I appreciate the invite. Always a fun time talking football season.
So spring game last Saturday. You got the orange versus white. Talk to us a little bit, kind of how Tennessee, how the coaching staff approaches the spring game every year there at Knoxville.
Yeah, under this staff, it's been kind of on the boring side, I guess, especially if you compare it to what Ole Miss was doing out in Oxford. It's definitely not maybe as fun as that over in Knoxville. They don't show much. No one really does. It's pretty straightforward. We're just going to alternate possessions, do punts against the air. They don't really separate anyone into teams. It's kind of, all right, offense, you're orange this possession, and maybe the same guys are white the next possession. So there's not really a cohesive scoring system or anything like that. So kind of the main overall goal of the spring game under Heupel has just been get some fans in the building. It was limited due to renovations to Neyland Stadium, but you still got about 10K people in there. And then maybe get some eyes on some new faces, whether it's transfers or freshmen, and see how Nico's doing, which is what everyone wants to talk about.
Yeah, and that's where I want to start. Nico Iamaleava coming in at quarterback, and there's been a lot of talk about him really since he was in high school, and then when he committed to Tennessee, and just from what you've seen, what you've heard, just with his time so far in Knoxville, how's it going, and what's kind of the future look like for him?
Everyone you talk to talks about how he's the real deal, and he's all 5 stars that he's been given. If you go to rivals.com, he was the number 2 overall player in the class. So that's kind of been the consensus, is he's lived up to the hype so far. Obviously, he has only 1 start under his belt. It was against Iowa in the Citrus Bowl. So you put as much kind of credence to that as you want in those bowl games where there's opt-outs on both sides, and you kind of can't necessarily put your full finger on how good that performance was. But he goes out there, he hangs a bunch of points, the defense backs him up, and Tennessee walks away with the blowout win. So 1 start down, you feel pretty good. You go into the offseason now as a redshirt freshman, and you still kind of hear the buzz around guys, and you talk to wide receivers or other offensive pieces, and everyone's really complimentary of what he's been able to do. I always tell this story, which I think kind of sums up what his teammates think of him, at least. Last season, he throws for his first touchdown pass. I believe it was in that UConn game. It was later in the season, kind of mop-up duty work. He hits tight end McCall Castles. And the next week we talked to Castles about it, and he starts grinning. He's like, yeah, I got my gloves that I caught the ball with. I got Nico to sign them. Those are going to be worth a lot one day. I want to put them on my wall in my living room. So having a fifth-year senior guy who's seen a lot of football catch a pass from a freshman, and it's not like it's his first touchdown pass or touchdown catch. He was really involved in the offense. For him to kind of already say, like, hey, this guy's going to be legit. I needed to get those gloves signed. I think that says a lot about kind of where this program thinks Nico stands going forward.
And Josh Heupel is an offensive guy. Do you see Nico just fitting into his system already, or are they having kind of changed things to make it fit his strengths?
There's not really much changes. We've seen it. It's really been the same offense, but obviously that offense is really quarterback friendly. It puts your offense in positions to succeed. So there's going to be things here and there where maybe you play to the strengths of Nico a little bit more than what you did with the Joe Milton or Hendon Hooker. But the overall system, the overall concepts, they're all going to be the same. And that's kind of on each player to personally, when they come into this system, to get a grasp of it. And you talk to guys, and they all say that it takes a minute, but once you start to get used to it, it's really not that bad. And Nico now, his second off season with Tennessee, because he was in an early enrollee last year. He has a start under his belt, and he's going in as that unquestioned starter. He seems to have a pretty good grasp of what Heupel and that whole staff wants to do.
As far as pieces around him, I know that, again, like you said, everybody likes to talk about Nico and what he's bringing. But as far as guys maybe in the skill positions around him, what have you seen this spring, and what are you hearing kind of some of the skill guys that we could look forward to for the Vols?
I think you have to start at running back, because really the leader of this team, at least vocally, is junior running back Dylan Sampson. Before the scrimmages, he's the one that's addressing the team as a whole. If you go to practice, he's that vocal leader that's kind of corralling the locker room and giving the message from the player perspective to the team. And he had a really good season last year where he started as probably running back 3 behind Jabari Small and Jalen Wright. And by the end of the year, Jalen Wright was still that running back 1, but Dylan Sampson was getting a lot more touches than Jabari Small. And it's not like Jabari Small wasn't a bad back for Tennessee. It was just more how good Dylan Sampson was as a sophomore. And now he comes into this year as running back 1. Not only does he have those leadership traits, but he's an explosive athlete. He's really quick with the ball in his hands. He has kind of that home run hitting ability where if he gets a little bit of grass in front of him, he could go all the way. And he also understands kind of that +2 mentality where you get your shoulder down and you get those couple extra yards. So at running back, even though maybe behind him is a little bit sketchy at the moment due to some injuries, Cam Seldon's missing a good amount of time. True freshman Peyton Lewis missed this spring. At the top of that, you feel really good. And at the wide receiver position, they bring in a guy, Chris Brazel II from Tulane. And we'll have to see where he kind of fits in. He's on the younger side, has multiple years of eligibility, but he has been kind of the storyline at wide receiver throughout spring. He's caught a lot of eyes. He has a lot of attention. He caught a big touchdown pass in the second half of the orange and white game down the sideline where he goes all the way. He's kind of showing that he could be a factor this year, but man, that wide receiver room is really crowded. You have Brew McCoy coming back on the outside. Chaz Nimrod, he's versatile. He can play in the slot or on the outside. Caleb Webb comes back. Mike Matthews, a 5-star freshman who's also going to be on the outside. He's going to get on the field somewhere or the other. And then in the slot, Squirrel White's coming back for his junior year. He missed the spring game due to some family matters. And then Braylon Staley, another true freshman who he's in the slot, but he's also been kind of one of the storylines of the spring.
As far as defense goes, I'm hearing a lot, reading a lot about the defensive line. Talk to me about that. Is it size, numbers? What are folks liking about the defensive line?
I think it's the depth. Rodney Garner, defensive line coach with UT, he really likes to get a big rotation in there, especially with how often that defense is on the field with the nature of what the offense wants to do and the pace they play with. He feels like they need to be able to go 3 deep, sometimes 4 deep on that depth chart and get guys snaps in just to get some of your more star players rest that they need to make an impact late in the game. And this year, Tennessee boasts a lot of depth, and that's on the interior, that's on the edge, Leo and defensive end. So you have the stars like a James Pierce Jr., who's projected to be one of, if not the best defenders in the SEC next year, and Amari Thomas on the inside returning for his final year of eligibility. But when you look behind him, there's not that big of a drop-off. And when you look behind that guy, there still doesn't seem to be that big of a drop-off. So I think that's why they're getting so much praise, why defensive coordinator Tim Banks maybe walked it back a little bit right when he said it, but talked about them being one of the best units in the country and why there's such a high expectation for that unit to kind of maybe not carry the defense, but make up for some possible mistakes with the young secondary.
Yeah, so and that's what I was going to go to next is what's the rest of the defense look like, Goose? Because looking at the depth chart and everything, it does look like there is some youth, especially in that secondary.
There's youth in the secondary, but the talent is really apparent, right, when you watch them. The athleticism, the physical abilities of the group they have now, I think is a step above where they've been at under Josh Heupel. And there is a lot that you can say about kind of being a veteran and playing a lot of college football that definitely helps. But when you have these younger guys come in who are super athletic football players and just maybe more kind of top tier SEC talented football players, even though they're young and there's going to be those young player mistakes on the field, I think that's the direction Josh Heupel wants to go in. Eventually they're going to get that experience, whether it's pretty or not, but it's going to be young. But the upside, I think, is what people are trying to focus on right now is there's like I said, you're going to have mistakes, but in the long term, I think they feel good about guys like Ricky Gibson, freshman Boo Carter, Jordan Matthews, Jordan Thomas, and you can kind of Jermod McCoy. You can go down the list of guys that they feel good for the future of.
As far as the transfer portal goes, open right now, do you see Tennessee being a team that's going to be aggressive and bringing some guys in over the next couple of weeks the portal's open?
I don't really think so. There was rumors about talking to the Oregon State running back, but that it isn't going to be a thing just because that's kind of the position of note. Like I mentioned, Cam Seldon misses the spring, and then true freshman Peyton Lewis also misses the spring. So there was a hole, maybe at running back 2, running back 3. Tennessee, I think, feels confident with the guys they still have left, and they do feel like Cam Seldon's probably going to be good to go for this season. So that was the position if they were going to do anything that I think they would look to, but I would be surprised if they make any sort of big splash. Really, the only movement so far was Elijah Herring, led the team in tackles last year as the starting middle linebacker in every game but the first one because of Keenan Peely's injury, and he's going to enter the portal this year. I believe he's taking a visit to Colorado pretty soon. So that's probably the most significant loss you'll get as well. But there's a lot of guys in that linebacker room, which we haven't been able to say under Josh Heupel's tenure so far, but they actually have guys there now. So I feel like that's also not too big of a loss.
VolReport.com, where you can find all things Tennessee. Ryan Sylvia, appreciate you for coming on talking some Tennessee football with us today.
Yeah, thanks, Chase. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Subscribe, like this video, subscribe to our page, and we'll have more great college football content coming your way here on Southeastern 14.